What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. My name is Shawn and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today for a Cage Warriors 163 preview by, I'm going to start calling you my Cage Warriors preview co-host, Brad Wharton here. You come on so often, Brad. You do me a great service of coming on to talk about these cards because they are very good cards, and there's another one coming up here with the welterweight title in the main event down in London.
I've been called a lot of things over the years, Shawn, and many of them much worse than that. So, Cage Warriors preview co-host, I'll gladly take that one.
It's not a bad one. It's not a bad one. Come here. There's one thing I want to talk before we get into this, because I always feel like I go through the Sherdog pages of all these fighters, and I kind of notice something. And do you know what I noticed for this one? So over the last few years, obviously the European scene has become like full. Like, we've had PFL Europe and Octagon, and obviously Cage Warriors have been there all along, KSW have been there all along. And I think at a time, a lot of people maybe who are kind of Cage Warriors fans got a little bit worried, oh God, they're going to take the fighters and all like that. But I've noticed there's a lot of fighters on this card who've actually fought in KSW, fought in Octagon, fought in other places, and it feels like there's more opportunities for everyone, and there's also more opportunities for Ian Dean and Graham Boylan and others to actually sign those fighters that have proven themselves in other organisations, and either give them a second chance there, or, you know, maybe to have a disagreement with the other organisation or left the other organisation, whatever it might be, and sign them up to fight in Cage Warriors, or a Cage Warriors fighter going to Octagon or whatever it might be. And do you know what? That is something at the top level of MMA in terms of like the UFC. For years we never had at the domestic levels of MMA, even at the domestic levels of MMA. You know, if you got signed to a Cage Legacy here in Ireland, or an FCC maybe in the UK or whatever it might be, you were damn glad of it, and there was no other options. But it feels like there's options all over the place now, especially in Europe. And I think the worry that people had maybe for that affecting their favourite promotion, I thought at the time it was warranted, but it feels like it's almost unfounded now, because it's turned out to be better, that more fighters have gotten more opportunities and more promotions. Is that something, obviously you like myself coming into these previews, we study these fighters and you think, oh, where's this guy fought? And you look at him and he's fought in all these different promotions, and you see that experience, and now you have more experienced fighters being able to test the up and coming fighters as well. It's not but a good thing, really, is it?
Yeah, I think, look, obviously I have a very strong personal bias towards Cage Warriors, but I think if you take a step back and you look at things for the good of the sport and the good of fighters as a whole, and I think Graham said this to the guys on the Old Triangle recently. Having those options for fighters is good. I think Graham was talking about Bellator possibly not existing, and it's one place out of the marketplace for the fighters to test their worth, test their skills, achieve whatever it is they want to achieve in the sport. So having plenty of organizations around, it makes it difficult in some respects, because there's more competition for ticket money, there's more competition for athletes, there's more competition for space in the media. But, competition always brings the best out of people, I find. And I think it's that old adage of a rising tide raises all ships, right? Because you've got this very healthy European, UK European scene at the moment, and people want to come from Scandinavia and fight over here. Where they already have good shows at home, they maybe want to go to a different country and test the mettle and get that opportunity. Whether they're looking for the exposure on UFC Fight Pass, whether they're looking to fight in a big stadium in Poland somewhere, whether they're looking to make a lot of money in a short space of time. Whatever you want to do, however you want your career to play out, there's plenty of options for you, and that's, like you say, only a good thing.
Yeah, and not only Scandinavian fighters, but obviously you've seen a lot of French fighters, a lot of Italian fighters especially come to Cage Warriors, and maybe a lot of the Eastern European fighters as well have good careers in Cage Warriors maybe after they're in KSW or places like that as well. So it's brilliant to see, and it's brilliant to see the opportunities being spread around all parts of Europe, I suppose, and it can be nothing but good for the fighters and for the promotions as well, and for the fans. Let's get into this card, Brad, because it's very interesting. We spoke last time about obviously the kind of the turnover in titles at the moment, with most of the champions getting signed to the UFC in the last year or so, and we have the welterweight title up for grabs here in the main event: Omeil Brown versus Giannis Bachar. Jesus, I obviously I've seen a lot of Omeil Brown over the years, and you know that he's one of my absolute favourites. I hadn't seen a whole lot of Giannis Bachar, but what I did see was very impressive to me. Maybe I'll speak about that in a second, Brad. But for the welterweight title, it's been a prestigious title down through the years for Cage Warriors, hasn't it? And for a guy like Omeil Brown, who's been there, you know, he's had his setbacks, but he's bounced back every time and looked really, really good. Look, he's looked good even in losses, but he's looked good coming back from the losses as well. It's good to have someone like this in this spot, isn't it? This is what Cage Warriors is about. A guy who's been there since day one, built his way back up, been built by Graham Boylan and Ian Dean to get to this spot, and now it's a big opportunity for him.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this is a guy who's been fighting for a long time. I think, you know, he was having amateur fights back in 2015 as a very young man. Fought some absolute killers. You know, I think he fought Fabian Edwards in one of his first amateur fights, and obviously they're now part of the same sort of training umbrella. You know, so he's a young veteran, if you want to put it like that. He's been in the game a good few years now. He's had some good fights on Cage Warriors, some good tests. You know, there's been the odd stumble along the way, which is what you would expect when you're fighting such a high caliber of opponent. But he's come through most of the tests with flying colours. And I think when you're a guy like Omeil, who, you know, look, let's be honest, he puts on the kind of fight the fans want to see, because from second number one, whether he's getting out wrestled for 15 minutes, there's always that risk that he's going to flatline someone. There's always that risk that one big uppercut or that big right hook or the big left overhand lands and someone's going to sleep. So there's always that danger. There's always that reason to keep watching, to still be interested. You know, it reminds me back in the day of you know, watching a guy like Chuck Liddell. You know, even when he was in his decline, you're still wondering, does he land that big bomb and someone goes to sleep? And that's the question that I'm always asking myself with Omeil Brown. Win or lose, you just don't know where it's going to come from, when it's going to happen, and who it's going to happen to. And that's what we saw with Jesse Holland last time, you know, uncorked. I mean, I wanted to say it was a surefire Cage Warriors KO of the year contender, but the past couple of weeks have been pretty insane on that front. So he's got some competition there. But I reckon it's going to be on the short list at least. And look, if he can land that punch, there are very few men alive that they're going to be able to take that on the chin and keep coming.
Who was that knockout last week? I was actually away and I didn't see it, but I had about 6 people send me that knockout that happened in the Rome card last week.
You can take your pick. There was a few, but I think the one you're referring to is the Baris Adiguzal one, where the guy came forward and just got starched and stiffened up. Insane. That was scary.
Never mind Cage Warriors.
He's good. He's all good, thankfully, but scary moment.
Insane. Never mind Cage Warriors knockout of the year. That could be knockout of the year. Full stop. It was absolutely insane. But yeah, as you said with Omeil Brown, that's always there for him. But one thing, watching back a few of his fights, and I watch a few of his fights from, obviously, you know, he's only 8 fights into his career, but I watch a few of his early day fights, a bit of the James Sheehan fights, and then like that your Holland fight, not just the fight itself, but beating your Holland. Like, I thought your Holland was a surefire Cage Warriors welterweight champion. One scene, obviously, in Gary went away and the belt was going to be up on the line. Honestly, I thought he was going to win the title and just go to the UFC. I thought it was going to be straightforward enough. Omeil Brown had other ideas, and that tells you how good he is there. But one thing, the big thing I noticed, how good defensively Omeil Brown is. It's all well and good, you know, to look at the offensive part of it, but I feel like on the feet, the way he covers up, the way he blocks shots is just really good. But he's very good defensively on the ground as well. You know, you kind of alluded to it there. He has been wrestled in fights. When you're as good a striker as he is, you are going to be wrestled in fights, you know. But he is very good in the transitions, very strong as well, but very good defensively on the ground, you know, and on the feet. Southpaw, boxer, very tough. He's just for a guy only 8 fights into his career, Brad, and we see there's a lot of experienced guys on this card, and we'll talk about him, but he fights like a guy who has more than 8 fights, doesn't he?
Well, he fights like a guy who's training at Renegade, and you know what I mean? There's, you know, I don't want to blow smoke anywhere, but there's no easy rounds on that mat, you know, and if you're not, if you're turning up and you're going to try and half-arse it, or you're going to not try and pull your weight, you're going to have a miserable day time after time after time. You know, when you've got the likes of Leon Edwards in there, when you've got the likes of Fabian Edwards in there, and, you know, Tom Breese, and just all those guys, that umbrella of guys in the Midlands who've all sort of come together. They've got a great coaching team, a great support network, and just so many elite fighters. I mean, how many times, Shawn, over the years have we seen gyms have maybe 4 or 5 elite level guys in, and then everyone else just gets better, from the amateurs that are starting out to the novice pros. It just helps everyone. We've seen it countless times. It's all right having like one star in the gym. That's all well and good, and that can work sometimes. But when you've got a few guys all coming up together, all at that high level, it's a trickle down effect for everyone else, because they're getting those great rounds with legitimately great fighters. And I think Omeil Brown has benefited immensely from that. And I think 5 years down the line, we'll be talking about more guys saying, oh, they get to train with Omeil Brown every day.
And like the fundamentals of guys like that, even a guy said like Jai Herbert, who came through the same way, every time you see him fight, like, he has a chance because of those fundamentals, because of what he's been through, because of the path he's taken. And you could name, as you said, 4 or 5 guys like that. It is a brilliant place to be. His opponent on the weekend is tough, Bachar. Like, I watch him, I would describe him as a reactive fighter. I think he kind of reacts to everything. He has this forward motion and the high hands, and sometimes that might fool people a little bit into thinking, oh, he's just like this juggernaut going forward. And he is to a certain extent, but he's smart with it. He throws that left hook. Do you know what he throws? He throws when something shows itself. That Pedersoli fight, Pedersoli kept taking him down. He kept taking him down. And in the end of it, he was like, grand, I'll play that game with you. Got on top, vicious ground and pound. And you could forgive a fighter like that for not having the best cardio in the world. But he has really good cardio because he kind of conserves it with his style. Like that kind of, that go forward style, but he's only throwing stuff that shows itself, as I said. So, for a guy who's like jabbing and combos, you'd wear yourself out. But he is, he's not one of those guys. And then when it gets to him being on top, he can absolutely let it go on the ground and have no trouble over the cardio. With that said as well, he can obviously fight on the feet. I'll mention that left hook again. It's a lovely shot in the right hand down through the middle. It very much feels like this will be a stand-up fight. Now, you never know who someone might throw in a takedown in there, but it very much feels like that to me. And I always wonder with younger fighters like Omeil Brown, and Bachar's only had 2 fights more than him, so it's not like it's a massive difference or anything like that. But we see guys struggle with pressure all the time in mixed martial arts. Even, McGregor later on in his career said that he struggled with it. And I wonder, will that pressure and the ability to land shots accurately from the pressure, will it be trouble for Omeil Brown? Now, as you said there, look where he's training. He's from very, very good guys to prepare for with that. But I think it's a very interesting test for him. And we'll see how it goes, I suppose. But Brad, from the Bachar point of view, beating a guy like Carlo Pedersoli, similar to your Holland, shows the level he's at, and this is a very good test for him. This is by no means Omeil Brown just being anointed the welterweight champion, is it? This is a real tough fight.
Absolutely. One of the things that really impressed me about Giannis Bachar, who's someone I hadn't really seen anything of before he fought Pedersoli, what you got to remember about that fight is that he was coming in off nearly a 2-year break from competition. So the fact that, let's be honest, it turned into quite a scrappy fight. The fact that he was able to, keep his cardio under heavy pressure, under heavy fire like that, and use it, as you said, effectively, so he was still in a position when he got into those good spots in the fight to actually make it count and actually do the damage and ultimately close the show. That to me was very, very impressive. He's a slightly older guy than Omeil. He's been fighting pro a bit longer. He's fought obviously a bit more sporadically. That's why they've got similar records. But he's a real tough test. And like you say, pressure wise, we already know that Bachar can go into someone else's backyard and beat the hometown favorite. Like Pedersoli Jr. he's the man over in Rome. Like everyone was there to see him. It was a completely partisan crowd. And Giannis Bachar turned up with 2 cornermen and his girlfriend, and he didn't care. He was ready to spoil the show. And I think he's not going to care about coming to London. For Omeil, first main event on UFC Fight Pass, big pressure moment for him, fighting for a title in his 9th professional contest. That's a lot of pressure for anyone. So, this is it's question time now, right? Does Omeil Brown rise to the occasion? Does the veteran use that veteran savvy to get the better of him, or can Omeil Brown land that power shot that does what we know it does? And that's the jeopardy going into this one for me. And I'm really looking forward to it. 100%.
People are always asking me for my pick, so I'm gonna pick him, Omeil Brown. I think it's honestly, I think it's going to be.
You were always going to pick Omeil Brown, weren't you? I know you're an Omeil Brown fan.
I was actually thinking this morning, geez, people are very biased now in their views. I'm like, Omeil Brown, the biggest fan of all. Like, yeah. No, I'd have to pick Omeil Brown. I love that style, but honestly, I love Giannis' style as well. So, it's just a good fight. I'm looking forward to it. Another fight I'm looking forward to in the co-main event, Darren Stewart against Edilson Franca. I was kind of shocked yesterday when I was looking up the fights and I see Darren Stewart won his last 3 fights in a row. I'm like, how did that happen? Like, where's that effort coming from? And then the way he's won those fights is through pure veteran savvy. So much so that he must be on the verge of a title shot right now, He's become a way more intelligent, smart fighter. He bites his time, has thrown in a lot more takedowns, times everything well, gets behind the jab. He's like that old, in any sport you see him, that old experienced head, even in Matt Bonner late in the fight, Bonner was coming on hard and he gets that takedown, not a takedown to win the round or anything like that, but a takedown to just save the fight. You might be, the cardio might be an issue with that when you put on such a high pace, get that, you win the fight. It's almost amazing. Like it felt like Darren Stewart, with all due respect to him, he's only 32 years of age, but he's had a long career. And, when he came and he lost to Mick Stanton after a really, good stint in the UFC in terms of what it was, he 3 or 4 years in the UFC. To me, it felt like, this might be the beginning of the end for Darren Stewart, but by God, it hasn't been. It's great for Darren, great for Cage Warrior as well that he's coming back and making a run again, Brad, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You could really see the frustration on his face when, he lost that comeback fight to Mick Stanton, and, he kind of lost it in the way that people have given him trouble before with, putting him on the bottom, and, to see him go away and, not just work on that aspect of his game still, but actually develop that into an aspect of his game. He goes in there against Leon Aliou, who's known as a big banger, and he takes him down and he out wrestles him. And as you said, the fight IQ with the Bonner fight, we've seen Darren Stewart in his younger days, and if there's ever been a bit of frustration creeping in, he goes back to what he knows, which is, right, I'm going to stand in front of you, I'm going to bang, and one of us is going down. But we saw a more patient, calm, smart, evolved version of Darren Stewart in that Matt Bonner fight. I really, really enjoyed that fight. And the second that I saw it was on the slate, I knew it was going to be an entertaining one. Obviously, I've followed both their careers for a very, very long time, so kind of bittersweet in a way because I really like both guys and want them both to do well. But I was particularly impressed with Darren in that contest, I have to say. Look, he's going up against a guy who's very much a kill or be killed guy. And, that's the kind of fight that Darren Stewart wants. He wants a bit of danger. He wants a bit of jeopardy. And, we're talking about a guy here that's stopped 8 opponents. Definitely very dangerous. I believe this one's going to be a catch weight, so it's going to be slightly above the middleweight limit. So no big weight cuts to worry about. We're just going to see 2 guys swanging and or banging, as they say. And
you can't beat that. I watched a bit of Franca, and it's, the 2 things you said there about Darren Stewart is what will get tested here, I suppose, either good or bad. He's very good offensive wrestling, I think Franca has, obviously, which could test Stewart. But I think he's kind of struggles off his back a little bit. He's very hard to take down because he avoids it well. He doesn't really have to show defensive wrestling, although his defensive wrestling is good. But when you get to him, you can take him down, and then he struggles off his back a little bit. But he reminds me a little bit of Hector Lombard. He's kind of this fast twitch hooker that comes at you. And he looks like he throws it all out there, but he's more patient than that. He actually conserves it well. And he's my type of fighter. I like this sort of guy who's smart with the big bombs and throws them. A very good criteria fighter. I would put it out there even.
100%. Look, you can't go around calling yourself venom unless you've got a dose in both hands, man. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think that, are we going to see that sort of tactical Darren Stewart again, where he's mixing in those takedowns, or is this, we're going to see a nice brawl in London in front of his hometown fans? I think if it's the latter, it's time to roll a dice, and if it's the former, I think Darren's going to be a big problem for this guy.
Yeah. I'm looking forward. I'm going to pick Franca. I'm going to go for him. I think he might be able to get them with that power. So there's my pick on that one. I'm going to guess this is the next fight is the fight you're most looking forward to, Brad. Shawn Silva against Gerado Fanny. Oh God, watching Silva, there isn't that much tape on him because he's such a vicious striker. My initial notes were big hair, fearless striker, and that's what you need to know about Shawn Silva. You know, we all seen that big flying knee at this stage, the vicious combos. You know, for Gerado Fanny, it's the switch stance, Muay Thai, very good takedown defense, very powerful for his size, very good in the clinch and all of that. I don't have too much more technical analysis than that, apart from the fact that Silva is just going to go out there and do what he does. But this is a different test, you know, for a guy who's only 5 fights into his career, who's fighting Gerado Fanny now. That is a massive step up, and I can't wait to see it because he looks so talented. This is one we can talk about for an hour, Brad. I can't wait for it.
This is a fight that does not require technical analysis. No one wants to hear the technical analysis of it. It's just going to be fun, right? It has to be. You know, I mean, look, if they fought 100 times, maybe one of them will be dull and boring, but it probably because, I don't know, someone slips over and injures themselves or something. I don't understand how there's a universe that exists where this isn't going to be an entertaining scrap. Look, Shawn Silva has the less experience of the two. The fact that Ian Dean's matched him with Gerado at this stage in his career should tell you everything you need to know about Shawn, about how highly regarded he is, about his level of ability. You know, Ian's not about putting guys in matches that you know, are going to derail them and they're not, you know, going to be a competent opponent. Shawn is incredibly fast. He's incredibly slick. Like, he's got good grappling too. We just didn't really get to see it last time out. And as we know, he can finish fights. Now, he doesn't necessarily look as powerful as a guy like Gerado. Like, you know, Gerado is obviously, he's fighting at bantamweight sometimes as well. He cuts a lot of weight to make 125, and he really does take that power with him, as we've seen. You know, he's got the old death touch. Look, the way people have got past him previously is to take him down. I don't think we're going to see that from Shawn. I think this is going to be a real speed versus power fight, speed versus technique fight. I think Shawn is going to put all those dancing skills that we also know he has to good use. He's going to be on his toes. He's going to be doing laps of that cage around Gerado, getting in, sticking the jab, getting a combination off. And of course, Gerado's going to want to either land the big overhand, or he's going to want to get a hold of him and smash those knees up to the body, smash those knees up to the head, and fingers crossed, not to the head when his opponent is on the ground, because obviously we have seen that from him before. He gets a little bit overexcited sometimes. We don't want to see it again. Look, obviously, we all love to see a big, crazy knockout, which I think there's a lot of potential for on both sides in this one. But I would be very happy with 15 minutes of these guys slinging leather. And I think if you're not, change the channel, my friends. You're watching the wrong sport.
100%. And it's not as if Gerardo's coming off of losses or anything. He's won 4 of his last 5, won his last 2 in a row. You know, beat Danny Opagliaccio last time out. All 4 of those fights finishes as well. This is a tough test. Ian Dean's
People's main event.
He's done him no favors here, but that's what it's all about, getting in there and testing yourself. And I can't wait for this one. Do you know what? I also can't wait for the comeback of Mateusz Figlak. It's been what have we? Almost a year now. Almost a year to the day. In fact, it was the 12th November last year. And it's the 11th of November this year. Obviously, that fight with Jimmy Wallhead, which was finished very, very early. He's fighting Denilson, Neves de Oliveira, coming in here, who is a pretty good fighter. Is a good test, I would say, well-rounded. He's kind of that square striking stance, very dangerous off his back, good at guillotine, good on top. Just a well-rounded challenge. I think it's almost more a mental thing for Figlak coming back here, as it is for anyone, you know. When you get to the interim title, you're probably thinking, okay, I'm going to fight Rhys McKee next. If I beat Rhys, there's no doubt about it, I'm going to the UFC. And then you lose to Jimmy Wallhead in 2 minutes. That must take a lot to come back from. But he's a big brute of a man, brilliant on the ground, throws hard on the feet. He has it all. Like, he's a very good athlete as well. He's seen his brother obviously do it and get to the UFC. This is a massive fight for one of the top prospects over the last few years in Cage Warriors, isn't it, Brad? And it's great to see Mateusz make a comeback here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Matt back in there. He's a fantastic fighter, super entertaining, just like his brother was in his brother's Cage Warriors run. Look, I think that fight against Jimmy Wallhead, I think, and this probably sounds really silly to say, but I think it was more a case of Jimmy winning that fight than Matt losing it. I don't think there were many people who were going to beat Jimmy on that night. I think, Jimmy had a lot of stuff going on outside the cage. He was very, very close to pulling out that fight. That's Jimmy's story to tell, but there was a lot riding on it for him. And I just think it was Jimmy's night. And there's no shame in that as a guy like Matt, still very young, still young in his career, still got a huge amount of potential, a very, very high ceiling. This is a great comeback fight for him. After a year on the sidelines, he's been able to heal up, he's been able to level up, and he's going to go and fight a guy who is not there to make up the numbers, and a guy who's flying halfway across the world to fight him on UFC Fight Pass on the main card, looking to steal that thunder. He's a guy, as you said, he's got a Muay Thai background, he's got a BJJ background, he can finish the fights on the floor, he can finish guys standing. Pretty sure as well from my research, there's a few more wins on his record that aren't in various databases as well. So this is a guy who is fighting often, he's fighting regularly, and clearly the fact that he's willing to fly across the world to fight one of the Figlak brothers is a man who loves what he does. So I'm expecting fireworks in this one. Be very interested to see how Matt comes out. Does he try and tear into this guy? Does he try and get some minutes under his belt? Does he try and get a bit of cage time? And my answer to that now is I genuinely don't know. So very looking forward to seeing how Matt looks after this time to improve. Very interested to see how this one plays out, and what an upset it would be if things did go the other way. And I talked about jeopardy earlier on, and you can't discount that. There's going to be pressure on Matt. He's got to win this fight.
100%. I think it's one of the most fascinating things in MMA. We can all look at the very top and people winning titles and people coming through to get there and all, but I think that big prospect that gets a setback, like how they bounce back. We've seen people before, they have one loss, and they're never seen again, or they have one loss, they lose their next one, and that's it, and it can happen. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Figlak. I think the opposite. My pick is going to be him to win this fight, in fact, but it's massive. The jeopardy. This is huge. Like, you could argue that this is the fight of the weekend in terms of the overall meaning of it, I think, and it's very interesting.
Yeah, the effect on the trajectory is going to be huge either way, right? And more so certainly for Matt. And that's what I mean. Like, whether Matt is a super confident guy, super confident, but the pressure's still there. Whether it's him putting it on himself, whether it's the fans, the pressure is in essence still there. So I'm sure he's going to step up and bring it like he always does. And I just can't wait to see how the fight plays out.
100%. Let's touch on one or two more fights. Will Currie against Wallison Henrique. Always fun to see Will Currie in there. He's a guy who's done exactly what we were talking about there, bounce back from losses and come back. His opponent, Henrique, he reminds me a little bit of Daniel Rodriguez. Very good athlete, not an easy test at all. He's lovely leg kicks, lovely lead hook, nice jab as well. He's a guy who I think is very good at controlling fights. And for a guy like Will Currie, who I think his best attribute is his athleticism. He's just a big, strong fucker, basically. But
that's the technical term, yeah.
I'm sure you'll use that in UFC Fight Pass on Saturday. But it feels like he's still kind of putting everything together. And if he does, once he does, maybe, God, there's the sky is the limit for Will Currie. It's fun watching guys like him as well. Now he's 12 fights into his career, but it almost feels like he needs another 12 fights to become like the apex of what he's actually going to be. This is no easy test again, Brad. I know, Henrique is 16-13, not the best record in the world, but if you go and watch him, it's kind of clear what this fight is. This is another test for Will Currie. And if he can pass it, he'll go on. But there's no guarantee he'll pass it, and there's no guarantee. Look, anyone will pass these tests, but Henrique, the only surefire thing here is I think Henrique will give him a test.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the last thing Will wants to do is rush into another title fight, which, maybe he could do if that's what he really wanted to do. But you don't want a second loss to the champion while you're still a young guy. Why not make the most of it? Why not take the time? Why not iron out all the kinks in your game? He's working with a great team. He's obviously training very closely with Mateusz, who fights this weekend. They've got a fantastic relationship as friends and training partners. He's training with the right people. He's around the right environment. And he is improving. He looked fantastic last time. He was a bit frustrated with how the fight went last time. There was the punch to the back of the head, and his opponent sort of looking like he didn't want to continue. And I think the frustrations kind of crept through. And I just get the feeling that Will's going to want to go in and make an example out of this guy. Like you say, he is a tough opponent. He's got the ability to put it on Will, particularly on the feet. But I think we're going to see Will tear into this guy, and how that goes for him, time will tell. But yeah, it's a great test for Will. And, I think if he comes through this one, then maybe it's a fight early next year and then the title fight, or maybe it's another title fight next year.
100%. He's just one of those guys. He's much watched TV, isn't he? You have to kind of tune in and see where it goes for him. I want to ask you for your standout couple of fighters on the undercard, Brad. Just my one first. Obviously, a bit of Irish bias here. Sineadh Ni Nuallain. I was at one of her first amateur fights, I think, back in the day. I don't even think it's on her record. It's one of those on. Maybe it was a Muay Thai fight or something like that. I don't know. It was down in Cork years ago. But she's a fighter who had taken a lot of losses in her early amateur career and then won 3 in a row to kind of end it. I know I think she's living over in the UK now as well, and finding different places to train. Obviously, another SBG Ireland fighter on Cage Warriors, which is always great to see. But it's sometimes people need a lot of amateur fights. They need a lot of amateur experience to go on and become a good pro, and I'm very interested to see the early days of her career. Now, she's been in there with the likes of Chanel Dyer, who's one of the top prospects over the last while, Carrie Ann Vernon and others as well, and won her last 3 in a row. And I'm very interested to see how Sinead goes for for the early days for her pro career. Anyone else in the on the undercard, any top prospects coming through, Brad, they want to let us know what we should be looking out for?
I'll agree with you about Sinead first. I called a couple of amateur fights. I called the fights at the Four Nations, which is when she fought Chanel. And as I've been saying this to amateur fighters for 10, 15 years. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about your record. It does not matter if you lose 10 times, if you lose 15 times, as long as you're losing to good people and as long as you're learning from it. And we saw that with Sinead, right? She finishes her amateur career with 3 in a row, Cage Warriors Academy amateur flyweight champion, and all of a sudden you're making your pro debut and people actually care about it. So yeah, very much looking forward to Sinead. Riri Hudson, another Cage Warriors, 2-weight Cage Warriors amateur champion. On the undercard, she's taking on Annalisa Labella. And then we've got a fight between 2 Cage Warriors Academy champions, Tariq Pell and Shawn Fraser. That's going to be fairly early on in the night. So if you're going to tune into the prelims on UFC Fight Pass, that would be my pick of the one to set your clocks for.
Brilliant stuff, Brad, as always. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm looking forward to this. It feels like it's always special in London as well. Dublin, London, Rome, everywhere especially. Let's be honest, but the London cards are very, very good.
We've got a good crowd coming for this one. There's still going to be a small number of tickets left by the time this goes out next week. So if you fancy joining us, it's a huge night of MMA, right? Next Saturday night. We got Tom Aspinall fighting for the heavyweight title in the UFC. We got the Alex Pereira. Help me out, Shawn. Help me out. Who's he fighting?
He's fighting Prochka.
That's the one. But massive. And obviously for fans in this part of the world, Tom Aspinall taking on Pavlovich for the UFC heavyweight, the interim heavyweight title, or rather, is huge. So it's a big night of MMA. So look, get yourself down to the Indigo CageWarriors.com for your tickets. Have a great night with us, watch some crazy fights, and then get home in time to watch Tom Aspinall become the next heavyweight champion of the world.
Good timing as well. Just sorry to buy all the Christmas presents and everything like that. One last blowout, and then we'll take it easy before we get to Christmas. Brad, thank you very much.
And look, are you even a friend if you're not buying your friend Cage Warriors tickets? That's all I'm saying.
100%. 100%. Without a shadow of a doubt. Thank you very much for joining me, Brad. Thank you to everybody for listening, watching. If you want to watch Cage Warriors over on UFC Fight Pass all around the world. My name is Shawn Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.